Hello, everybody. Today is Monday, October 23rd, and this is episode 41 of Block Digest. We're at block height 491,392. So, to dive right into it, guys, how the heck does a tangle count its block height with a million different things tangled together? No answers?
The dead air is palpable.
Well, it was.
No answers?
That's a tough knot to untangle. I mean, I'm tangled. What can I say? What happened here? I mean, the centralized untangle of tangles needed refangling.
I think that we have discovered a new meaning of IOTA, Internet of Tangles.
I think
As fucked.
I'm more interested in
IOTA.
the discovery that we can shut down a decentralized peer-to-peer system for maintenance. Like, you can do that?
Yeah, and that's weird. I thought decentralized meant that you couldn't do that. I guess I'm a noob.
Yeah, we didn't really understand this stuff.
Have we just been wrong this whole time?
You know, I was criticizing.
Okay, so just tell us, but somebody just tell us, break it down. What happened? There is this. Well, the thing is that's really weird is that I would say there's this blockchain, but they don't call it a blockchain. They call it a tangle. Or someone will correct me in the comments. So I'm sorry if I don't have the complete technical understanding of their revolutionary system. But so yeah, all right, here we go. Eric Wall. So the coordinator was shut off. IOTA is down. So they just shut down one server and the whole system, the whole network was down. Does that sum it up?
Yeah, I mean, this is like one of the silliest things in the world. Like, pretty much IOTA, to reiterate, is a DAG. So instead of one chain of linear blocks, you have a whole tangle of things. And the idea is that, yeah, like every once in a while it gets checkpointed so that you don't have the DAG spread off into like the bottom end of a broomstick where you have everything going off in different directions and peers can only see certain parts of things, because then you have the ability to double spend on like one end of that and everybody on the other end won't see that, so you can spend it over there too. And the coordinator was pretty much their solution to prevent that. But obviously, as you can see, they shut that down. And now what? And another interesting aspect of this is it wasn't just the coordinator, which is closed source and centrally ran, that shut down. All of the nodes shut down as well. So how in this decentralized system that counts on a centralized checkpointing service get all of the decentralized nodes to shut down for maintenance for 2 days?
Well, I think one of the theories was that they just have a whole bunch of droplets spun up, and they probably just turned off those droplets, and those droplets probably have a whole lot of nodes on them. But that's not really good for your project either, because, you know, how do you defend that? It's like, oh, well, it's B2B decentralized because we have all of our nodes behind this other local area network. But I was going to actually just say, should we introduce ourselves a little bit so the panel, so people know who's talking? Why don't we start with Shinobi?
Oh my God, Blake, what the hell? That was so embarrassing for me. Like, you just embarrassed me. I messed up what I'm supposed to do as a host. You're not supposed to call me out. You're just supposed to go with it, Blake.
It's probably a deep character flaw. You're probably a bad person.
Blake with the showstopper.
With the showstopper.
All right. I guess we have Blake, as everybody sees. We're also joined by Acnix.
Hey.
Mr. Theo Goodman.
Feels like half AFK.
Is Theo gone?
What's up? I'm here. Welcome, Internet.
Oh, thank God. We have Mr. Rick, our resident meme expert.
With that awesome hat.
Hey, everyone. Hey.
And then I don't know if she wants to introduce herself, but Velo, she's one of the operators of the Mumble. Really awesome asset in the community. Velo.
What's up, guys? I just came in here to bug you, so I'll just be chilling. Thanks for the intro.
Most definitely.
Right,
we need a dissenting opinion. We need to make it so that Shinobi doesn't go unchallenged. This needs to be a contentious episode.
Oh, absolutely.
All right, guys. So why are my jokes about IOTA wrong? Come on, poke holes in my jokes.
Why are they wrong? I don't know. I think it was funny when because they were like, it was decentralized, and then it got attacked, and it's not decentralized, so we need to decentralize it so we can re-decentralize it. And I thought that was just a really funny painting yourself into a corner of rationalization type of version of events.
So wait, we got to centralize the decentralized thing so we can decentralize it so it's not centralized anymore?
It's like war for peace and rape for virginity and all those types of
Wow, what, Blake, you're on a roll. So what is the point of IOTA anyway? What is the stated goal of that tangle chain, or however, how should I refer to it?
Well, supposedly its purpose was to be used for Internet of Things transactions, but if it's all just coming down to the centralized coordinator, I'm not really sure how that's any different than just giving your device a PayPal account.
Right. So, but why was it? What was the issue? Because there was a month ago or longer an issue with the not with the encryption. Yeah, with the algorithm they were using. Do you remember that story?
Yeah, they had they rolled their own hash function that pretty much left the network open to double spending potentially, and then played the whole branding game where they took a pre-existing algorithm and renamed it for some reason.
All right, was this recent thing why the coordinator or whatever they're called? Is that why does that have anything to do with it, or why did they? And was anyone in a self-driving car when it happened?
Sorry,
it was over the weekend. It was over the weekend, and it looked like I don't know. It looked like that coordinator was like their client, and I mean, I think it was really kind of like the whole thing was they don't really know why it went down. People on Reddit started speculating, and then they did make a blog post about how they're doing a security audit. So it's possible that that's why they shut it down. And I just think it's really pretty funny how they responded. Like with that coordinator, they had a Twitter account that just said, "Hold my beer." Like they know that that's something screwy going on, and they're just they're kind of being a little trolly about it. But yeah, it was something that happened over the weekend.
Did the price dump on this, or was there any reaction in the market?
It went up.
That's great. That's great. Well, nobody can send anything anywhere, so it's all on exchange. So you can't send it from your wallet to dump.
Yeah,
that was pretty convenient.
Yeah, it's an insular value issue. So there's another thing in terms of what to be doubtful of when the effect of somebody's problem creates value insulation that makes something go up and stuff. You're like, well, isn't that convenient? It's a very convenient problem to have.
And I mean, it's like I don't know what the heck. Like a lot of these projects in the space are really sinking their value at as. I mean, like we've seen like a number of issues with. Sorry, go ahead.
Re-decentralization. Can't you see it's a good thing?
It's like a twice-baked potato.
I mean, to rein in the troll a little bit, though. I mean, like, what is the purpose of something that it literally depends on this closed-sourced centralized coordinator to protect itself from double spends? I mean, like the entire like value proposition of Bitcoin, like the original blockchain implementation, was to have a decentralized way to manage the double spend problem. Like that's the core of what all of this is about. It is a way to manage that problem without a centralized authority being in total control of arbitrating that. So wait, what's the value?
What if we could have a centralized server that'll do this? It would be like a database, but with blockchain technology, it wouldn't function as well or as quickly. We could call it beta days technology.
Well, as long as we don't use SQL, that's fine. It's got to be NoSQL.
God. Yeah,
I have no problem
now
with permission ledgers. I don't have any problem with a permission ledger that's being used for things that it makes sense for. But when you have something that you're like, oh, it's just totally decentralized, and then it comes out in specific, certain super material ways that it's not, I mean, I think it's worthy of at least a little bit of ridicule.
Well, I mean, but that's kind of the thing here, specifically with IOTA, is like they're not advertising it or throwing it out to the market as a service that they provide. They're attempting to paint this image that they're a decentralized system, or Litecoin or any of the other actually decentralized systems out there, and they're not. I mean, it's like like where is that line where attempting to use a centralized service but portray it as something like Bitcoin becomes scamming, or
it's fraud. Yeah, it's a violation of mutual assent. That's why a lot of people are trying to label a lot of this stuff as securities, because when you have a security, it's going to represent certain things and not represent certain other things. And in terms of when you're buying a security, it has to be, you know, mutual assent has to be involved. So you can't be selling a security that's for something completely different than what the person who's buying it thinks that it is. And this would be one of those cases wherein the qualities of this quote unquote security being fundamentally different than what people think they are, namely not decentralized, makes it a violation of mutual assent. And there's a whole bunch of legal baggage with that too, but I think we've probably kicked IOTA enough when they're down.
Okay. Well, I guess then you want to move on and start looking at some of the rationalizations we're seeing in Wall Street for why people aren't dipping their toes in yet. I think we've got a CNBC article titled "Big Money Stays Away from Booming Bitcoin." And I think this is kind of a really interesting thing to look at for somebody who isn't really thinking through the dynamics of like Wall Street moving into this space. And it really does kind of tie into a lot of the other use cases for Bitcoin. So, I mean, like when you look at like one of the main things that are kind of deterring people from actually using Bitcoin as a real currency in their day-to-day life, it's the volatility. Like most people are not going to want to deal with the added mental complexity of analyzing price swings when they're going to buy a loaf of bread. Like most people aren't going to want to sit there and do the opportunity cost in their head. Like, okay, well, the price just tanked 20%. Like, how much am I spending? Like, what's my net loss in this year? And like that same kind of thing holds true for just investing in Bitcoin. Because a lot of these hedge funds and other institutions on Wall Street, like they manage billions of dollars, like on a regular basis. But like you can't just sink that much money into Bitcoin right now with the kind of liquidity we have, because it would drive the price through the roof. Or if you've accumulated coins and are dumping them, it would drop it into the floor. And so like for a lot of use cases, like the liquidity balance in the price is really a necessity, and we're not going to be able to see the type of liquidity and the stability that would bring until we get to a much higher market cap or a much higher price per Bitcoin, because it's just the numbers there. Like,
well, I think
if you have,
I think that you're totally right. I think that there's a volatility problem, but I also think that there's like layers of the economy. And if you look at the layers of our legacy economy, the top layer is like the dollar, and then all the layers underneath that are the derivatives. And what people are looking at Bitcoin as, they're like, look, it's the same as our layer of money or our layer of investment or futures in like the middle of the economy. But putting Bitcoin there versus our economy is an inappropriate place to compare it to, which I think a lot of people like Jamie Dimon and that they compare Bitcoin to this layer of our economy. When Bitcoin is a totally new economy. It goes all the way at the top to be compared with the dollar. There's a whole bunch of derivatives there under. The derivatives that fall under Bitcoin versus the derivatives that fall under the dollar are fundamentally different, because the unit of value is fused with the IOU. There's not going to be a big extended paper futures market and stuff like that to blow the value of this unless people voluntarily set up to use it that way. So when people like Jamie Dimon and these big investors say, I don't know what the value proposition of Bitcoin is because it is not a crypto identifier tag on a real asset, so it has no value. It's like, no, we've come up with a new digital product, which is digital scarcity and renting space in the ledger that you can then control by virtue of how many coins you have. That is a new form of value, and it's categorically superior to all other forms of value in terms of its objective traits and qualities. There are some things like volatility that are not as good, but as far as the material objective factors, it is a better medium of exchange, and that is missed by people who are trying to invest in ephemeral or short-term value propositions in terms of Bitcoin. They don't see that the value proposition of Bitcoin is the long-term upset of categorically inferior modes of moving money around. And from that long view, Bitcoin is fantastic for long-term investment, but the short-term investment play, people don't understand. And even like Jamie Dimon saying, well, it might be worth $100,000, but then it's going to collapse. And it's like, well, Jamie, an object in motion will remain in motion unless a force acts upon it. So the object in motion that's going all the way up to $100,000, what's the object of force that's going to turn that around to going down in the opposite direction? And it's not reasonable to conclude that if the factors that make this system unique drive it to that spot, that then some new factors will be birthed out of nowhere that we can articulate and then drive it suddenly in the opposite direction. That's not a reasonable thing to conclude without being able to state what that thing is that's going to drive it back down. Sorry to jump in on that rant.
No, I mean, that was perfectly said. I mean, like when you look at Bitcoin in relation to like the fiat it's traded against, it's like a sponge or a battery. And I mean, like all the problems as far as using it beyond speculation go, it's all a result of that lack of liquidity. And the more it soaks up, the more reasonable and cost effective all of those other uses start becoming. So like, yeah, if we get to that point, like you're having these utilizations become more efficient, more practical, and more useful, the higher like the value gets, the more we soak up. And like when we get to that point, like why would that just suddenly implode on itself when all of these value propositions start actually, to steal a word from you, instantiating themselves in an effective way?
No, exactly. And then you also have to look at the issue in terms of people that want it to continue to spread and continue to have a lot of network force behind it and a lot of infrastructure that'll accept payments and then have it and stuff like that. When the price goes up to $100,000, the holders that then have lots and lots and lots of money by which to make previously very expensive issues now cheap, they're going to want to fund and support this new thing that's going on. And that's what Jamie Dimon says about the legacy system. It's going to fund and support its own things, and it's not going to let Bitcoin in, which is true. But he doesn't realize the categorically superior, objectively incontrovertible value proposition of having, you know, the equivalent of email to mail be money based. So when people don't have that big value proposition understood that it's incontrovertibly categorically superior to other mediums of exchange, that is the driving factor that's going to make it so that the legacy system's defensive strategies are going to be ineffective in terms of trying to keep the entire world, the jurisdiction of the world, from realizing the value of digital scarcity.
Yeah, but with seashells, I can make a necklace. With Bitcoin, I can't.
And yeah, I love that. It's like, people like, I can make a copper bowl, I can make a bowl of gold. And it's like, well, when people are talking about the
utility, yeah, it's a bad argument.
You know, what's the value thing they talk about? Intrinsic. They're like that gold has intrinsic value because I can make a bowl from it. And I was like, maybe you could say that as a superconductor it has intrinsic value, but even that would be kind of weird.
Yeah, well, it does have, you know, well, silver and gold do, you know, there is industrial demand. It's just nothing compared to the speculative demand. So it's, you know, it's just always used as something to say, but when you really look at it, it's pretty low. Also, there are derivatives coming for Bitcoin, and so whoever wants to use derivatives can. You know, I mean, there's Ledger X is doing derivatives now, and you know, there probably will be more coming. Now, of course, they won't be the same as holding real Bitcoin and a key and all that, but you know, maybe for some people they don't even want that, or they can't do that because of whatever reasons, because of insurance or because of regulations and so on and so forth. So that's all developing little by little, and then maybe people in the article that we cited would be fine, you know, buying a derivative and not okay holding keys because they don't want to have to deal with it. But that's just, you know, whatever you want. That's just a different product. Anyone else?
Well, I'm gonna kind of jump in here and toss up something that's kind of tangentially related. But the Saudi prince Alwaleed bin Talib, he's the operator of Kingdom Holding. It's a Saudi company that's invested in a lot of big businesses like Citigroup, Apple, and Twitter. But he's also another very influential figure in the legacy economy that's pretty much calling Bitcoin a scam. I believe in this CNBC article, he equated it to Enron. And like his line of reasoning, it's pretty much the exact same kind of thing as Damone and a lot of these other people. It's not backed by any authority. Its value is totally based on speculation. And it's like what is with this consistent like thread here of all these people in these influential positions like taking this line? Because I mean, you could make the argument that it's like, you know, if your paycheck is on the line, you're not going to want to understand something, but like the people like this are the ones best suited to benefit from something like Bitcoin because they have the capital to get in at a massive scale.
Well, what broker does he use? We just need to figure that out. I mean, you know, Jamie Dimon, he talked shit, and you know, he didn't buy a Bitcoin derivative in Sweden, but you know, that he works for bought some derivative in the name of their clients. So where does this guy do his you know, banking and his trading? But maybe he just bought some. I mean, if you're a big person and he saw that Jamie Dimon affected the market, I mean, it's just a conspiracy theory kind of. But you know, maybe he just wants to get in. It could be.
Well, I mean, that's kind of what I'm asking. Like, you know, are these people like legitimately do they legitimately think that Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies are scams, or are they just kind of playing the market like they do with other assets?
That's what
I mean. I think what do you think? What do you think, Rick?
I was just wondering, looking at this whole story, it just sort of looks like they are limiting on-ramps for the meantime until, you know, ETFs get approved and, you know, more large hedge funds get in, and then we might start to see this price volatility sort of slow down to, or, you know, and like you were saying about different products and different people wanting this for different things. I know that, you know, a lot of people talk about volatility in markets not being where they want it to be in these legacy markets. So maybe these guys are, you know, going that direction for right now until we get to this other place where things will be more, you know, mass adopted and more not so volatile.
Yeah, so they're trying to kind of get in and kind of keep the gates closed for the most part until they actually see the demand to like directly profit off of it themselves.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I just feel like a lot of people who have the liquidity and that kind of income to make trades on these huge volatility swings, they could certainly clean up. And I mean, like, I feel like that's, if you had enough money, that's where I would put it. But, you know, I'm not that big of a trader.
Oh, snap. We got Chris. We got Chris, people.
See, now the party begins, and now we really get to start to hear some foul language.
I'm just here for Blake. The Blake was on. I was like, what? Blake hasn't been on in age, and now I have to come on. Sorry, guys. Sorry I'm late. I've been involved with the whole Bitcoin Gold fiasco thing with Finex. They've just launched it, and I was like scrambling there at the last minute, and then I was out, and then I couldn't get online, and I was like struggling.
No, it's great. I hope you're like the Gordon Ramsay of Bitfinex, and you're like, these are the standards, standards.
Yeah, it turned out a bunch of customers wanted this shitcoin. It's basically an altcoin based on the UTXO set that we were like scrambling the last minute to set up a market. So yeah, it's all good. It's all good.
Got any insider info for us on that note, Chris?
Yeah, give me some Bitcoin Gold right now.
It's not a stock. It's not a stock, but they're hard forking in like 5 hours or so, maybe less than that. Well, not hard forking. They're taking a snapshot, and then the developer, this Martin guy, like I'm on Slack with him, Bitcoin Gold, and he's like, oh yeah, so we're going to take a snapshot, like, you know, roughly 6 a.m. UTC with whatever block height. And then we're going to like try and figure out the replay protection before launching the mainnet. I'm like, really? Like, this is how you're doing it now? You're like trying to figure things out. They haven't forked the network. It's going to take a snapshot. Well, not yet. They're figuring that out. Like,
they sound a little tangled up. Maybe they need to, you know, they seem a little tangled up. Yeah,
that's it. They're all tangled up.
Tangled
but like
up
I say, I'm just here for Blake.
You know, I sent
about mining.
I sent an email, and it took 2 weeks to get to where I was sending it to because of these tangled up tubes. You know, this senator told me that once, and he's dead now, so it's not as fun to make fun of him. But that was a pretty funny speech on the floor.
Well, I guess.
So who's their coordinating node? Tone down the ethics, guys. Come on. Who's their coordinating node?
Dial back about 25%. Dial back the ethics about 25, 30%, and then our ratings will go through the roof.
Yeah. Right, who's the coordinating node on this shit anyway?
Shinobi. We keep trying to talk over him to give him a hard time.
Yep.
Shinobi,
Yep.
yeah, we're tangling Shinobi up here. And yeah, we're so who is this
guys,
guy that said Bitcoin?
I'm putting down the hammer. All right, we're changing subjects. This is a dictatorship now. I'm in charge, and we're going to talk about Coinbase and how they totally cucked out. And guess what they did? Guess what they did? The original Bitcoin chain is going to be called Bitcoin. That's it. They caved. They realized that trying to just call this entirely new corporate fork that they're creating Bitcoin is fraud, opens them up to a shitload of legal liabilities, and they've seen the light. So I mean, at this point, like, what hope does 2x have to actually try to claim to be Bitcoin? Like, the one of the most influential signatories that was still going to stick with it has now publicly stated that Bitcoin is Bitcoin, and Bitcoin 2x is not. So where do we go from here, guys?
It sounds a bit controversial to me.
I think that this signifies that the Bitcoin experiment has been resolved, and that yeah, it's over now. So, you know, unfortunately, Adam Back and the assholes of Blockstream are just going to, you know, be this cartel of assholes. And the good people, the honest people like Roger and, you know, the Bitcoin Cash maximalists are going to lose. And history is never going to know the great sacrifices that we tried to make in terms of goodness. I mean, Satoshi's vision, you guys.
I think that they should just call it you know, SAT-V, Satoshi's vision. That should be the ticker. SAT-V.
That would be so funny. They should.
Yeah. That could be the ticker. That is really interesting, and I'm sure that they probably will have figured out that they are opening themselves up to some legal thing. Because I mean, if I'm just your everyday noob and I sign up with Coinbase and I want to buy Bitcoin, and it has, you know, nearly the same logo and nearly the same name, the wrong one because it's cheaper, and that, you know, they're going to have to make it really clear. You know, Ethereum is clearly a totally different name. Same with Litecoin, which I believe you can buy there too, right? So those are really clearly, I mean, Litecoin has coin in it, but
wait, no. What did Via BTC do? One of them was angled left, and one of them was angled right. Like,
well, yeah, that's Bitcoin
totally
Cash.
Clear. I mean, that's like, you know, that's due diligence
Bitcoin
right
Cash.
there.
No, that is Bitcoin Cash, and there's several cases where it's very misleading. And I believe the BitPay wallet was super misleading. I don't know if they changed it, but for a while, I mean, it had the same. They didn't change the ticker. It was BTC and BTC, I think, or something really bizarre like that.
Isn't the whole thing misleading? Aren't they trying to steal the name? So isn't this like standard operating procedure / best practices, how to mislead? Yes, and then like you just tilt it a little bit to like, okay, we'll tilt it farther.
If we're gonna shit talk the Cash wallets, why does Electron Cash still have the Bitcoin price feed? But why does it try to tell me that my Bitcoin Cash is?
Check this out. The is an interesting discussion, because the original idea of Bitcoin Cash was, no, we're not going to do replay protection. That was the original idea, but they had to cave on that too, because nobody would list it. You can see it on the GitHub. You can see the Twitter things. And when I was at the Future Bitcoin conference, I don't even know if it was called Bitcoin Cash then, but they were saying, we're going to launch this thing and it's not going to have replay protection. So that is a thing. I don't think Bitcoin Gold is doing it on purpose. I think they just look tangled up. Now, as far as SegWit 2x, it's still up for discussion as far as I can see, because some people have said, different exchanges have said, Trezor said recently, that was the one I read. Trezor said recently, no, that was Bitcoin Gold, excuse me. See, I can't even keep track of all this shit.
I mean, neither.
Yeah, Trezor said we're not going to support Bitcoin. Trezor said we're not going to support Bitcoin Gold because the replay protection is not clear. Some basically short version. 2x, I think the replay issue is still unclear. Does anyone know what the hell the status is with that? Are they going to do it? Are they not going to do it? What's up with that?
That actually, I'm going to kind of sneak in a little segue here. It's got me a little confused about what BTC.com is doing, because they're essentially saying that they will support both right off the bat, and that they're actually encouraging users to send their coins to them if they don't have them there already to deal with the fork, because they have a replay protection method. And the only thing I can think here is that they're going to be directly processing their own wallet customers' transactions through their mining pool and effectively splitting the coins with tainted outputs. But
well, that's
yeah,
that's all right. So I'm gonna try to get someone from BTC. I know a guy from BTC.com. I'm gonna try to get him on here. He's pretty cool, pretty reasonable, and I like he started a meme too, the evil miner meme. So that's the the evil miner that story. But yeah, we can get someone from BTC.com on here and have them talk about what they think about this and their wallet. So what is BTC.com? What are they doing? They have a wallet. Do they do anything else?
I'm not really sure what they do besides the wallet service and the mining pool. Like, this is actually a company I've kind of never really developed a clear opinion on, because like kind of the circumstance of like their involvement with BU, I just always got the sense that this was one of the Jihan shells, that this was kind of indirectly set up or run by Jihan. But lately they've kind of
they bought a wallet. They bought the wallet. They bought it.
Well, I mean, like their mining operation specifically with the Jihan.
Oh, okay.
But like, but lately it seems like they've kind of like pulled back a little bit from like contentious pushes for things, and it's really made me reconsider that assumption that this is kind of just like another a Jihan red herring.
Yeah, well, I agree. The people I talked from there, I was pretty. They were pretty cool. Sure, we didn't agree with everything, but they were pretty much as you described. They're trying to figure out the best way to do it, but we can try to get someone on, see what they think about it. So I don't know. Yeah, so BTC.com is going to support it right off the bat, so you can use it for. I don't know if that's so. They have a wallet. I don't know how that's going to work in the wallet. We'll have to read the article. What about Bitfinex? Are they going to support 2x right away?
Mr.
Do we know?
Chris?
Sorry? Well, there's going to be a chain split token, but whether or not the wallets are activated, I mean, that's up to Paolo and the team of developers side, right? They've just got to look at the situation as it evolves. But you can still issue like a futures or a chain split token in anticipation of that.
So they don't really have any concrete plans as far as like
splitting. No, because until the day, you don't know what's going to happen. It's like Bitcoin Gold today. It was like a scramble at the last minute, because there were customers that were saying, okay, like, are you going to credit the Bitcoin Gold? Because if not, we're going to do a bunch of withdrawals. And what you notice throughout the day is the lending market started to dry up, right, on the BTC side, and started getting silly fees for borrowing Bitcoin in order to short Bitcoin, right? And as a result, it was like, okay, let's have a meeting. Let's decide what we're going to do about this Bitcoin Gold, because up until now, the policy of Finex was to ignore it. Because it was, it wasn't deemed relevant. There were more important things to work on. And then there was this announcement today from Bitcoin Gold. They were I think they were pulling forward the snapshot date. And then it was like, okay, actually, we think we should just do this because it'll set a precedent. It'll be a good dry run for future hard forks. And the policy right now is not to worry too much about the particulars in the future, because it's such a changeable landscape. Like, one can spend every day glued to all the Reddit and the Twitter feeds looking out, what decisions are going to be made. But like you saw with Bitcoin Gold, they were changing their minds every which way. Originally, this was going to be a snapshot back on the 5th of October. Then it was going to be like the 1st of November. Now it's been rewound to like, maybe 4 hours from now, roughly, based on the current block times. And so if you stress out too much about what will happen when, you're just wasting your time. Like, okay, if there is a concerted effort to launch a fork of the blockchain, we at Bitfinex have now decided, like, and I just speak as a, you know, as a contractor there. I mean, we've had team meetings. I'm using the word collective. We decided that this is a brute fact. It's a brute fact that people will attempt to fork the Bitcoin chain with the UTXO set intact. So what do we do given the situation, given that there are lending markets, given that you need continuous trading, and given that, you know, we don't, you know, every exchange doesn't want, you know, a bunch of traders start taking their Bitcoins off in hordes, and then suddenly there ends up with this, you know, weird effects with liquidity and people not being able to borrow in order to short and so forth. So what we decided was you just have to let it happen. You just have to accept that it's going to happen and actually just provide temporary markets, chain split tokens, and then temporary markets for people so that, you know, if they're long or short on margin, they can, you know, exit those positions in a graceful way that doesn't create a market event, doesn't trigger some shock event in the market, and, you know, leave somebody with an unprecedented balance on their P&L. But that's really the only way you can really do it. I'm happy to take questions. I know that was a very dense piece of information. I just been out this evening as well whilst working this and meeting a bunch of people in Bitcoin, and they wanted me to explain the reasoning behind it. And I know it's complicated, but if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Yeah, it's just real quick off, like Fubar made a comment. He's kind of giving you shit for not having a clear plan together for that. But I mean, it's not that simple, Fubar, when you have like these things come out of nowhere, because like you don't know until a fork developer actually gives you specs and tells you what they're going to do, how they might change things with data formats to like keep things segregated. You don't know like what specific mechanism they're going to be using for, like, you know, replay protection or other things like that. And like you really can't do anything to prep for that on a technical level until you actually know those details. So I mean, in the case of both Bitcoin Gold and 2x, like that's kind of still a wild card.
Well, I mean, think about it. When something is hashed and it's gone into a commitment that's been witnessed, and that information is, you know, brick shithouse solid, it's immutable. That's not the trend in most technology. Like there's a Steam. Steam is software for your computer, and it became popular because client server software, namely like first person shooters and stuff that you could play with other people, some at a server, some were P2P, but it didn't matter. The versioning of all this different software was a nightmare, and Steam being a central versioning place where everybody could get the same version so they could communicate, that was a huge problem that was solved. Now we have blockchains, and people are like, oh, okay, well, let's just take the features of the blockchain and we'll decide whether or not we want to support that. But before it's actually spun up, or before commitments are actually made and hashed, things can change right up to the last second. And, you know, observing any type of critical failure all the way up until the last second is extremely stressful with a huge amount of work overhead. And so I think that maybe helps to clear up for some people why it's such a contentious, high work, risky thing to try to do these deals on software without a brick shithouse unified version.
I was going to applaud y'all's efforts, man. Like, you know, like you're saying, it goes back and forth as to what's going to happen with that, when they're going to do the snapshot, when the fork's going to happen, and y'all were right on top of it. And yeah, I mean, because in that Coinbase statement, they say that they're not going to support Bitcoin Gold for their customers because it's too wishy-washy, I guess. They don't quite understand how it's going to play out, where, you know, you guys heard it was coming and y'all know it's like moving fast and y'all jumped in front of it. So I applaud y'all's efforts at Bitfinex.
Right. So this is like a message I got from this, you know, developer, Martin, at Bitcoin Gold. And this was just like a few hours ago. So this was like all hands on deck, right? So we make the decision internally that, okay, we need to list a futures market. There's going to be enough demand for this thing. Given that as an exchange, you know, you have other demands, like the developers have other things they're already working on. And then he says to me, you know, the fork will occur, but the mainnet, he says, will be started a bit later on in time. We need the replay protection, a unique BTG address, which is being implemented and currently in test phase. So given that they're forking at this point in, like, you know, maybe 10 hours time from the point this conversation is taking place. So what you're dealing with here, and I hope it doesn't mind me sharing this sort of, you know, private conversation, although nothing in there is particularly sensitive. put yourself in my position, right? Like I'm being asked to come up with, a futures contract, which is probably going to be based on the SegWit contract, except this time the settlement condition can't be based on the emergence of a valid, viable chain, which is what we did for SegWit 2x tokens. It has to be based on the snapshot, right? Because if you think about it, how does Paolo, the chief technical officer, and how does he put all these balances into the people that didn't trade on the CSD? He has to put these new Bitcoin tokens into people that are holding Bitcoin. He has to put negative balances into all the margin shorts. And of course, now Martin, this developer of Bitcoin Code, is telling us, 10 hours before the fork time, oh, but by the way, we'll be doing a snapshot of this block height, but we won't actually be rolling out the mainnet chain until maybe 2 or 3 days later. And it's like, but hang on, we can't like halt trading and everyone just like wait for you to get your shit ready. We have to allow for continuous trading. And so, yeah, I had other things planned for today. And, I work remotely and Phil was like, we got to do this. So I was like, fine, I'll, cancel everything else and I'll work on this. But please understand that every time somebody forks like this and it creates enough demand, all these exchanges have to put in a ton of work, like 10 people today, all had to stop what they were doing at Bitfinex to do this thing. And credit goes to, Paolo really and the team and the legal team at Finex who had prepared, who've done the preparation that they could roll out a market actually in under 2 hours. What took time today was getting all the wording right, making sure that everyone understood what they were trading on the CST. But this idea that you would do a snapshot at one point, but you're not going to have a mainnet chain, like you're not even going to have hashing power for a couple of days, wrecked. Like that, like I don't approve of that.
Yeah, somebody, Mustafa, asked in the chat if you asked why they're waiting the 2 or 3 days for the mainnet launch.
Because they want to do this replay protection. But then my question was, well, why didn't you get this shit ready? Or, why didn't you have this ready on time? But they want to do testing. They want to have a unique address format. As you could see, if you want to rewind the tape after the show, you can see the message again. Like they want to make sure that, the address format is slightly different and that there's replay protection so that people don't accidentally send coins to the wrong address.
I guess the new address format's an improvement, I guess, from Bcash. You won't have any of the issues of people confusing things. So you guys want to see the next piece of 2x news?
Sure, man.
We've got an exchange in Hong Kong completely refusing to list or support this in any way. They will not distribute any B2X tokens to their clients. They will not process any B2X sent to their addresses, and they will not list B2X on their exchange. I'd say, like, aside from maybe BitMEX, this is probably one of the strongest condemnations we've seen so far. I mean, their volume isn't really anything to speak of, but I mean, they've taken a very hard stance compared to a lot of the other businesses in this space.
Well, and what are the consequences of that stance? The consequences are going to be that a lot of people that want to get those coins are going to take their coins off of their exchange, and then people will be holding their private keys that may actually condensed the UTXO set, they are going to have a lot less tax reporting implications because they weren't holding coins that were split. And even if they were, they said that they weren't going to be split and they gave proper notice. I mean, it actually seems like a pretty common sense stance for a smaller operation to take, to not, you know, bog themselves down with a horse ton of work that is very, very prone to net failure if an error is made.
Yeah, I think we might see more of that, like just to where people are just either going to support it or not. And we might see Bitcoins going to certain exchanges for certain altcoins, certain these airdrop coins that are coming in. And yeah, it's definitely a headache.
Yeah, and that's the thing that I think that BitMEX commented on it before. Once you list one, then there's going to be more. And then you're going to have to start listing more and more, and customers are going to expect to get every airdrop and or whatever you want to call it, split or whatever you want to call it, the proper name is. You know, so they have to really think about what they're going to list. So that's also another thing. I mean, maybe for some, yeah, right. If it's a small operation, it's maybe it's not worth it. So it's kind of a, of course, the customers, if they demand it, then then we gotta list it. But these things seem to be popping up. It's kind of like ICOs. I just found one under my sofa, and there's another. I found a new chain split under my under the pillow.
You found an ICO
You know what I mean?
under your sofa?
Right? Yeah. Oh, look! Look! I found ICO. Yeah, I found ICO. Under the. Oh wait, I moved the pillow. Oh, there's a chain split.
But it's funny
just everywhere. Now and then if you expect everyone to be listed, I mean, it can be. It can be. I don't know. It's just going to be. It's going to be interesting to see how that plays out, and to see how many more come. Okay, we've got. People are already joking about it. There's bit gold. Oh, there has to be bit silver, right? And there has to be bit platinum, and there has to be, I don't know, whatever other things. And what about?
Excuse me. Platinum already exists in this space. It's called rare pepe.
Well, what's the limiting factor, though? The limiting factor is the diminishing return on the amount of socialized cost that different exchanges will be willing to take on. So there's a certain amount of socialized cost that's being externalized by B Gold, and the number of people that are willing to take on that cost to potentially make money is X, and that's going to go down and down and down and down, in my opinion, as there are more and more and more forks. So the limiting factor is going to be the extent to which socialized cost is accepted.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. It's a little bit different than altcoins because, of course, that's not the way they're launched, because you already get some if you have Bitcoin. So that's the whole thing. That's a different dynamic than just listing altcoins or even listing tokens. So it's a little. That's the thing that is making it. That's why everyone is trying to figure out what to do and how to do it. And this whole replay protection, it's just really tangled up.
Ooh, interesting. Apparently, Nopara, what's up? He dropped by in the chat. Apparently, the reason Gatecoin isn't supporting B2X is because Nicolas Dorier refuses to implement anything with B2X in his library. I'm assuming they have all their systems built around Bitcoin. It's kind of an interesting dynamic there.
Had a baby Nicholas. Way to go. Somebody buy him a drink for me.
Well, I mean, see, I don't really know it. Like, now that you mention that, I don't know how I feel about that. Like, is that a good sign, as in the developers are actually sticking to their guns on what they think is the ethical decision, or is that a bad thing that an exchange out there is entirely dependent on, like, the library that this developer is producing? Like, they're incapable of actually building out support for these things on their own.
It's just a little Node.js action. It should be fun.
Yeah, but the development complexity, if you fork away from Bitcoin, is very, very, very high. And there are already metrics that are in the system in terms of if you fork it with the entire history of it. I mean, that's a rough bronco to try to tame. I mean, it's going to split your head open. It's not an easy thing to just be like, hey, this is going to be fine. What's going to happen is you're going to see like the earthquake footage of that suspension bridge that keeps going more and more and more out of the oscillation frequency that it can handle, and eventually it falls apart. Bitcoin Cash and the potential for that to happen with other coins in terms of the mining is definitely what we're seeing, starting out with this difficulty and then swinging a whole bunch of hash rate around with incentives that are delayed in terms of their communication. That is not good for trying to avoid these swings that can prove really, really fatal to this stuff. So the amount of socialized cost for these is not zero. And now Chris has been working on the socialized cost for this. Back when Bcash was launching, Jimmy Song was working on the socialized cost for it. And I have a feeling that continually the people that know how to do valuable work in the space are going to get really tired of doing that really quick.
Yeah, it makes sense to me. Okay, I'm really bad at the segue thing, but surprise, guys! Samurai Wallet has SegWit support. Everybody go open your wallet and move all your coins to SegWit, to the less secure security model, like Peter Razin said. Guys, let's downgrade our security.
But anyone can spend.
Yeah, exactly. Come on, guys. Let's downgrade our security. Let's live dangerously.
Hold on, I'm spending your coins really quick.
Seriously though, this is anybody
Okay,
out there watching, you should definitely start moving your coins over to SegWit and start getting some of those fee savings.
What other wallets are doing support like that so far?
To my knowledge, we have the Ledger and Trezor wallet applets, Green Address, Samurai just went live, and not really sure off the top of my head, honestly. I'm not keeping up too heavily with a lot of the SPV wallets out there. I do believe Electrum should be coming soon, though. They made a comment on Twitter sometime last week that 3.0 is coming soon, and that's the version that's including SegWit.
Yeah, I like Samurai Man. I've seen a little bit on Twitter about them talking about even developing a auto dump feature for all these airdrops. And I don't know, I just like that idea. Just as soon as they come in, you just press a button and boom, dumped it. But for right now, yeah, the SegWit address addition thing is big. I like that. I need to download the update for that right now.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder what kind of scripting processes can be made for these types of forks in the future, if they'll be able to script out a majority of it and then just make some tweaks on it for the different changes, or if there's going to be enough actual innovation in these things to make it so that it's not easily scriptable. But I don't think that it'll be the latter. I used to have a big sign in my office when I was at Wells Fargo that said, if you repeat it, script it. And I think that that's definitely true in a lot of these situations. So however much the change is, like if it's a minimal change, they should be able to script it. And then maybe my diminishing returns on the amount of externalized costs will be less of a factor if that happens. But I think it would be heavily dependent on how much of this stuff they can script.
I think it's definitely scriptable. I saw Eric Lombroso do a poll just recently today talking about, is this a feature you're interested in? And if you are, like, what would the fee be that you're willing to pay for it? So I think it's something that might come up down the line.
Interesting, very interesting. That definitely tempered the strength of belief that I had in my own point. So that's good.
Yeah, I mean, it's like really at the end of the day, unless you're fundamentally re-architecting the entire system drastically, all you're going to be doing is tweaking like little aspects of data structures, like maybe the block header or like a bit field in a transaction, or like the specific mechanism you're using to sign things. I mean, it would be annoying and, in my opinion, a waste of time. But I don't see that as insanely complex of a tool to build, as long as we don't see somebody actually go, "Hey, I'm gonna literally rebuild everything."
Gonna reinvent the wheel just to make it a pain in the ass for everybody that's implementing. How about you, Chris, on your end of the exchange? Would it be trivial, like how hard would it be to script out some of the processes of getting coins listed and distributed? Would that be a pretty big pain in the ass with the amount of material control you need to retain over the material funds?
Well, first of all, I just want to say that Bitcoin Cold is decentralizing Bitcoin again with a GPU efficient hashing algorithm. And no, I'm not shilling it. It's probably just going to be a shit point. It's probably not going to amount to anything. It's so badly organized. Each exchange is going to be unique, right? Like in its demands. Like something like BitMEX is a derivatives exchange, and they have the luxury of saying to their customers, you know what, we're not supporting any of these. We don't want to set a precedent. I understand that a lot of exchange owners right now, I can share with you, are pretty annoyed with this whole Bitcoin Gold thing, because they just find it like an awful burden. It can't be scripted away. But like with Finex, like a lot of thought went into it. Paolo put a lot of thoughts into it. And we now have what we feel is a pretty good boilerplate of legal terms, because you have to get the business logic and the legal logic right, and you have to have the code, the actual development code right underneath, so that every time something like this comes out, we have some standard, parameters, and we can just tweak them depending on whatever unique presentation is given to us by whatever bunch of marketers emerge and tell us they're going to fork the UTXO set. So unless, I feel like unless like someone on Bitcoin Core forks Bitcoin, right, and let Lou DeShire or someone like that, or Gregory Maxwell goes off on their fork, I don't think any of these forks are going to amount to anything. And the more that come out, the more watered down the whole concept's going to be, and the more used to the notion that people are going to get that these things are just going to like pump initially, maybe on some bullshit speculation, and then they're just going to do what most altcoins do, and it's just down and to the right, down and to the right for the next, you know, several months. You know, it's going to be bad holding.
So you're saying that people will eventually feel how they felt about Neverending Story after it was like part 7, and then they didn't want to go see that movie anymore?
Yeah, I watched that like a million times as a kid, and then after a while I was like, I never need to watch that again.
The Land Before Time, they made like 15 of those, and it's like I cried during the first one. I did not cry during the 15th one.
Hey, you leave that alone. You leave that alone, Blake.
Or Star Wars. They keep making Star Wars. I don't like Star Wars. I don't like Batman. I don't like James Bond. Let's just slay all the culture, golden cows, as quickly as we can.
Censor him now.
James Bond's gonna get you, man.
GoldenEye was good for N64, but that's the only positive thing that I will say about that entire intellectual property pursuit.
I'll agree with that.
Yeah, I can concur.
I love taking us off topic as far as I possibly can.
Well, guess what? I'm going to bring us back on topic. Haha, deal with it. Just a quick thing to present to everybody out there. Anybody watching who either doesn't run a full node or doesn't anymore, or has any user interface problems, like you're not really sure how to manage the node or how to set up the configuration or how to link your wallet to everything, I would highly recommend in the link section in the description, go through this article by Jameson Lopp. He's actually got a pretty good breakdown on, first of all, why you should be running a node. That obviously to protect yourself from these kinds of forks and different attempts to change consensus rules against users' consent.
Wait, what? Didn't Gavin say we don't need to do that?
Oh, who cares what Gavin said?
Gavin said I don't need to do that.
But the big important thing in this article, though, is he has a number of different tools. Like, for instance, he has a config generator that he wrote up himself where you can actually set up your configuration and have a file automatically generated for you. And then he's got another network configuration guide. So there's a couple of different links to guides in here that should help anybody who kind of feels overwhelmed at maybe trying to run a node or manage it themselves. And like, if you've ever had any doubt on whether you can handle that or had problems trying before, like I really recommend you check this guide out and give it another shot, because it really is important to actually be validating things yourself fully when you're using this network. Or
why doesn't someone do like a deal with someone like DigitalOcean and just do like a one-click install solution for like all the normies, so they can just click it, it sets up, probably not DigitalOcean, they're a bit expensive, but you know, one of these kind of, you know, hosting providers, and then it just like, you know, runs a bash script. I mean, I've written a bash script already. It's on, you know, my GitHub under full node, and you can just run the bash scripts and it will install all the dependencies for you. It'll install Bitcoin Core for you. And yeah, sure, you got a little bit hacky, you got to get, you know, but all the command line stuff is minimized.
Well, I actually love, like, I love
will pick the one with the rainbow cat.
But I have to yell at you for suggesting people set up a node on a VPS. If it's not on your system.
Oh, sure, I get it. But for those that won't do that, which is most people, you know. But yeah, ideally locally. But for those that won't, I think someone should set that up, and I think it would, you know, I think people would use it.
Did you guys see the dummy node spin up guide? There is this guide for spinning up dummy nodes because they couldn't get enough nodes up and running for these projects that were not in line with the core tenets of Bitcoin. So they wanted to make it easier for people that were too stupid to look into this stuff so that they could help support a project that they were too stupid to research and understand. And I agree and disagree with it so strong at the same time. It's like making this splinter in my brain.
Isn't that what 2x wants to do, or that was brought up as a possibility? It was similar to what XT
Oh yeah,
did.
Peter Resume, you know, he brought that up. He was giving them that idea. But like, personally though, honestly, I think if you're at the point where you're not going to run a node on your local machine, you're looking for a button to press to spin something up on a VPS, I personally think it's better if you just hook your wallet up to somebody else's node that you trust, like a close friend, maybe somebody in your family, somebody who can actually manage.
Whoa! This is a trustless system. I vehemently disagree.
Whoa! It's a trust minimized system, Blake.
No, it's trustless, man. You can introduce trust if you need to, but you're introducing trust, man.
It's a trust minimized system, Blake. Don't go there.
Trustlessness.
Don't make us.
I feel like you're fighting over semantics.
Well, yeah,
of course it's
that's what I do.
Of course, it's better if people run their own node, even if it is a one-click solution, because you can put all kinds of other things on top of that one-click solution. Like they could run their own green wallet through, or their own Samurai wallet through that node, right? You just send them an email and say, right, go into your wallet, set this, to the RPC client, and they would just do it. Okay, what you're trying to get into is the slacktivists, the people that like do know how to do it but won't do it. Not the people that can't do it. You're trying to appeal to the people that kind of know how to do it, but just won't do it. But what they need is like someone to save their fucking time, to write a script, and then they'll route all their transactions through their green address and through their Samurai wallet.
But here's my one problem with it being on a VPS though. What happens when there's a problem? Like the node crashes, something goes wrong, it's misconfigured. Like who do they go to? Like they're a person who's just clicked a button.
The actual server has like a mechanical breakdown, or do you mean the software?
Well, I mean like a software issue.
Well, if the software crashes, you can easily write a script to reboot the server. Like that's trivial to do.
But my point is,
hold on. Your point is a good one, but your point applies to both. Your point applies to the VPS, and it applies to your own internet service provider if you're going to run locally.
That's why I feel like people should be hooking up to like a node of somebody they trust in that situation, because either way, you're not capable of dealing with that.
Of course, it's preferable. If you have an old laptop sitting around, you've got an extra 130 gigabytes to spare. Of course, you should run your own locally hosted node. I'm not disputing that. I'm just saying that for a large portion of the people that are watching this, they just won't do it, okay? Even if they do have the ability. What they're looking for is like, I want to press a button. I want you to do all the work for me. And all I'm saying is, actually, I think that would be a pretty good service. Like you could do that. You could do a deal with one of these hosting providers and just do a white labeled, Bitcoin full node service where they just press a button. It still requires you to do some technical things. It just does the bulk of the work for you. That's what I'm saying.
It's kind of also...
Yeah, but it introduces like so many security risks, because like that server isn't yours. Like it can be modified, things can be changed, like your traffic can be rerouted.
Yeah,
it's like if you're not capable of managing your own node, connect to somebody who is, that you trust, because when something goes wrong on the node end, they can actually fix it.
Because but DigitalOcean is so much more competent than most people's friends. Maybe in this group we have some friends that are so competent that they would be more competent than a service like DigitalOcean and spinning up a VPS droplet.
What's the difference from what Shinobi just said between trusting DigitalOcean and trusting some random Electrum wallet hosting provider, someone that hosts?
Well, no, because I'm not talking about a random
thing.
The scenario. Like Mr. Hodl, for instance, has a lot of his friends and family directly hooked to his node. So those are people directly in his first degree of social service.
Yeah, sure. Okay.
There's a simple scenario where this works really well. You have a node at your house and you have a node at a VPS. You can, maybe your node's on a laptop. It's not running all the time. You want to sync it up. You peer off the port at the VPS, and you can depend on either one to actually funnel your transaction data through. I think that's a pretty ideal situation. I think may fit like some odd percentage of users.
Yeah, I don't think that the service level agreement that most people are getting for their home internet is suitable for the operations that we're talking about. I just really don't. I think that a VPS is going to have at least a service level agreement that's going to be in line with the type of uptime that people are looking for.
I just want to buy coffee.
For those in the know, SLA, service level agreement, for those who don't know.
A contractual agreement through meetings of the mind that's legally enforceable. Yeah, I mean, that's what you want.
Come on. We're talking about a person with a node that has maybe like 20 of their friends hooked up to it for the times when they're actually querying data and transacting. I mean,
20 people,
that's
you
not
definitely want a
gonna
VPS. Like, I don't know, anything above 2 or 3. Like, I think, like, I'm a fan of the VPS architecture, and I think it's not perfect. I think that there are risks, and that you spelling them out is definitely important. But at the same time, I think that it's the
why shouldn't Mr. Hoddle just buy up, like, you know, a 2 terabyte dedicated server and just rent that out to his friends, Shinobi?
Because he is not ultimately in control of that device, that software, and at the end of the day, that's more attack vectors than your actual personal computer.
Well, you could have armed guards. You could get armed guards for it.
I'm not saying they should keep their private keys there. We're talking about relays. So all they're really using these for is that it's running the version of Bitcoin that they want to represent their, you know, views on the network, right? They're running 0.15. And by the way, you need to release the picture on the main picture so that it switches to our faces when we talk. Yeah, there you go. So really, all this is about is which version of Bitcoin you want to use. I don't feel like, okay, you're right, there is some security concerns there. There are always security concerns. And you're right that, like, in theory, some political activists go around, like, you know, hacking people's servers and making sure that they're running the version of Bitcoin that they feel is convenient to their political views. But I don't see that right now as being a serious issue. Like, if you're going to trust an Electrum client, you're going to trust Mr. Hoddle's server. What's the difference between him installing the server and you just having a one-click install and checking it for yourself? Because you can go in the command line and check it and validate it. So I don't see.
Well, I mean, better yet, have a node at your house and have a node at a VPS, because then you're actually always doing consistency checks versus both. It's like the best of both worlds, like, really.
I mean, ultimately, Chris, it's because, like, when you have something on a VPS, like, that's on the VPS's network. Like, they're in control of routing that traffic, like, back and forth. They're able to shut that machine down. They're in total control of that environment. Like, it's like, I get what you're saying. Like, there is a utility in that, but it comes at a trade-off that I think you're kind of diminishing a little bit here.
I mean, they have physical access, but they're not going to be going into your sessions and being like, we have a root access password and stuff like that. So, I mean, it's not really the same. I mean, physical access, yes. You don't want to have physical access being Dutched on your own stuff, but physical access of a provider when you have your own environment that you can code remotely and that you can toast remotely, I mean, they're a little different.
I think we're going to have to agree to disagree here, and everybody should go run a node on their own computer, not a VPS.
Yeah, but that's not enough just to run on our computers. Like, if somebody has a Bitcoin business, or if somebody has, like, hundreds of people that they want to service, having a node with better uptime SLA is really important.
Well, I mean, you can just get a business class internet out of your house, get a decent, slightly old server and a RAID array and plenty of memory, and you're going to have one hell of a node still.
Yeah, but people can still flood out your local node traffic and stuff like that, whereas the actual surrounding network infrastructure and the frame encapsulation relay services that are going to be going on at a big VPS hosting service, I mean, they're just different. You're not going to get as much uptime at a home operation.
Yeah, there are trade-offs. Yeah, Shinobi's right. Obviously, a machine that you can physically access is more secure. He's correct. But there are trade-offs, and I just feel like, you know, Shinobi hasn't represented those trade-offs as clearly as you know, Blake and I have represented them. Like, but I'm not saying it's, you know, either or. It's just, there are trade-offs, right?
I think that you're right about, like, it's just like different layers of trust and how much trust you want to put in this. And I mean, like, I feel like I can understand where Shinobi's coming from on the passion, because it's like, I feel like that's where the whole sound money thing comes in. I feel like you have to tell people it's important to run your own node. It's important that you check the chain. And I think that's really an important part. And I understand, like, you know, even just the minorest little thing that could be a security problem does sort of just, like, it just sort of throws in the air, like, there's not as much trust now.
Well, there you go. So why wouldn't you just, like, run a node locally that was pruned, that checked your hosted node on your VPS to check that it was giving you the right information, it was, you know, validating the right things? You could do that. And then you would have all the benefits of the SLA, like Blake and I are saying, plus you would have all the security of something locally as well.
Also,
I think I just came up with a great idea for a service, and somebody watching this right now should set that up and charge people and make lots of money.
Yeah, I kind of like the idea Agnes was saying, having a VPS and your own. That way you just sort of like, I don't know, that way you just sort of double down the trust.
Yeah, we have the tools.
I like that coaster, man.
It's really good. I got it from room 77. SegWit coaster, the beer coaster.
Hell yeah, man. You got a interview lined up with that guy?
Bitcoin. Oh yeah. I want to get Jörg on for an interview. He was like really early Bitcoiner. He was like friends with Roger Ver early in the day, and he was like giving us these really cool stories. So he runs room 77, which is this bar in Berlin, and they've got these really cool beer mats and SegWit. And so he was like the first business in the world to accept Bitcoin, and it was right here in Berlin. And I've been there. It's a really, really cool bar. And he was telling us these stories about like Roger and how like, you know, they were really good friends, and, you know, Roger introduced him to Adam Back, and Roger said to Jörg, like, by the way, this Adam Back guy, he's like the second most important person in crypto or something like this. And he just talked about how things had changed so much, and how like, you know, the people had like split off and gone in different directions, and the people that were once friends are now like fighting each other. And so I think he's a super interesting guy, and we should definitely get him on for a show.
Yeah, it sounds fascinating.
Right.
He wants to talk to Roger on our show. Actually, that's
that'd be so.
That would be good. That would be great.
Yeah. Absolutely, yeah. So I've been out with him tonight as well. So might see if we can set it up.
Good
if
stuff.
Roger would like to come on here, that would be amazing, I think.
All right, we can do it. We can make that happen.
Can we have him on the show and then have Rick make the image, and it can be him crying about the military-industrial complex, and I could say something about the splits?
I don't know if I'll be able to do that one, man. He might leave at the last minute. So.
I think that they should both go. They should both go to a bull and bear and grab the balls. We need a picture of both of them grabbing the balls.
Right.
You know, yeah.
I think there's a rule of the internet. If you put your real face on the internet, you have explicitly agreed to allow yourself to be memed. It's a rule.
That's going to be all the way down in like rule 7000 appendix 342 adjacent A, some crazy internet rules got.
Yeah, well, I don't know about the rest of the crew, but I'm starting to run out of things to fart out of my brain.
Wait, can we have more things on the news desk? What else do we have on the news desk?
We pretty much burned through everything. The IOTA issue, some of the CNBC stuff, and then 2X.
All right, cool. It's like Enron in the making. We covered that as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh shit.
We need some Sarbanes policy.
So as also the real wolf of Wall Street said ICOs are the biggest scam ever.
Sure.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's funny because his narrow worldview is either ICOs or penny stocks, so it would be more appropriate for him to just stay in his wheelhouse and say that ICOs are a bigger scam than penny stocks, because I could actually agree with that. But the more flamboyant style of Jordan is going to go way all out of his wheelhouse and be like, it's the biggest scam ever. But, I don't think he's way off.
Well, you wanna take us out, Chris?
All right. Well, guys, did you enjoy today's show? You really like it? Well, if you did, you can like and subscribe. But remember, only if you want to. Say goodbye, everyone. Goodbye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.